Good morning or afternoon. We're looking at number 62, Colonel Bogey. This one is fun to play and it sounds a little silly, and the actual origin of this tune is a little bit silly as well. This was written in 1914 by the British Army bandmaster under a pseudonym because they were not officially allowed to compose or do things about their job outside of their job. So he did this under a pseudonym. And the legend goes for this tune that there was somebody who he served with in the British Army who played a whole lot of golf, and they weren't particularly good at it. And every single time before they would take a shot, they would whistle just a descending minor third, dee-dum, like that kind of whistle. I would demonstrate that for you, but I actually can't whistle. So they would whistle instead of saying four, and they also were not a particularly good golfer, hence the Colonel Bogey. So this tune was written to honor, or maybe as a dubious honor, to that person in the British Army, Colonel Bogey, as in one over par. So if you're a golfer, you understand that bogey means that you have taken one more shot than is determined to be par for that hole. So Colonel Bogey is kind of a silly song, and it was written to be a silly song. Now going through this one, if you look at the very beginning here, it does look pretty simple, but for some of us, this is one of those times where these top notes here, that big jump right there, is a little bit harder for brass than it is for woodwinds. So woodwinds take solace in that. Brass players, you're going to have to really make sure that you maybe insert a little miniature crescendo in these three notes right here to make it easier to get up to these. So it's okay if you play these top notes a little bit louder, as long as they sound good. So going through the bones of this piece, the skeleton, the roadmap, you start at the beginning, you play through, it says 2 coda, you're going to ignore that the first time and keep going, and then down here at 5, just keep going. It says DC al coda, that means go back to the beginning and then skip to the coda. So once you get to this measure, you go back to measure number 1, and then play through measure 1, 2, 3, and then 4 where it says 2 coda, you're going to skip down, bam, to measure number 9. And then you get to the end of the tune and you're done. So one more time, you're going to go measure 1, measure 2, measure 3, measure 4, measure 5, measure 6, measure 7, measure 8, back to measure 1, measure 2, measure 3, measure 4, skip to measure 9. Now in terms of strategy of this piece, I recommend that when you're practicing this one, you isolate this right here. That's measure 7, 6 and 7. Big time, and then definitely the coda itself, particularly the last 2 measures of the coda. So that can be pretty challenging, and make sure that you remember that sharps do change what the pitch is, and remember that the key signature is going to be in the key of concert B flat. So this one should be fun to play, so have fun with it, but make sure that you start slow or this piece will seem harder than it is. So work slow and have a strategy. Small parts to the whole. Okay? So have fun with this one and good luck.